Welcome to Explainable AI, where demystifying digital minds is your personal journey into the heart of AI. I'm Paul Anthony Claxton. I'm an AI venture capitalist and serial entrepreneur. After a decade of serving in the Marine Corps, I was really captivated by the power of battlefield technologies, which inspired my transition into the corporate world of enterprise technology. My commitment ultimately is to make a meaningful difference in the world, which has led me into entrepreneurship and venture capital, where I view capital as a powerful tool to drive positive change. As a recognized thought leader in AI and venture capital, I often share my thoughts through writings and podcasts like this one on major platforms such as AISEO and the AI Accelerator Institute. You can learn more about me on my website at paulclaxton.io. And now I want to hand it over to my co-host, Rohan Hall.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, my name is Rohan Hall, and I'm an author and a serial entrepreneur, and I'm also the CEO of code-genie.ai. In addition to hosting this very awesome podcast, my current focus includes code-genie, where we build very cool AI technologies for our clients. Traffic Monster, our technology product that automates organic content creation for entrepreneurs and podcasters, and Ninja CEO, where we actually teach non-technical entrepreneurs and founders how to convert their tech ideas to real technology products. You can learn more about these at my website at rohanhall.com. That's Rohan, R-O-H-A-N, Hall, Hall.com, where you can learn all about the cool, fun things that I focus on.
Thank you, Rohan. Today, we're welcomed by our guest, Mr. James Chalmers. James, if you please take a minute to just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your work.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul, and thank you, Rohan, for having me. My background is that I've been an operator and really focused on commercializing tech for the last 25, 30 years. Today, that sees me running a family office through Basecamp Capital, where I invest and support startups who are having meaningful impact in deep technology. And the role that I'm most proud of is that of Chief Revenue Officer of one of my portfolio companies, Novo Power, where we're taking waste heat in data centers and we're transforming it into economical electricity to be reused within the facilities.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that overview into your background. So just kind of leading into the power consumption. That's what we're going to talk about today is the power consumption, the massive power consumption of AI and the pollution that it creates and how we can potentially mitigate and alleviate some of those things that are going on in the industry. Rohan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, I kind of wanted to lead into, we were speaking prior to starting this, that you're in France. I love France. I'm in France every year. My wife is French, and so we go and spend some time in the mountains in a little village called Le Puy-en-Velay every year. And but we're speaking prior to this about you're in France now, and there's some differences with the power that's needed. And can you tell us about that? Because I thought it was kind of cool and kind of lead us into exactly where this discussion should be going.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start off by saying I feel like I'm on my back step today because I am dealing with power inconsistency. I started my day off at a co-location data center just outside of Aix, and it was really interesting to understand from a smaller operator in France just how concerned they are with their ability to get more power. Left that meeting, really feeling, like the work that we were doing at Novo Power is that impactful, is that important beyond just the economics of it. I returned back to the place that I'm staying, and the power in this area has actually been turned off because the grid is being upgraded so that they can charge electric vehicles in the town. And so, we talk about this a lot. Certainly Paul and Rohan, this, you both preach this and talk about this quite a bit. But electrification, AI, they're demanding incredible amounts of power. And the fact of the matter is, our infrastructures just aren't set up to accommodate those power requirements. So I feel like for me this evening, I'm absolutely living that by being a little power constrained myself.
And that's what I kind of found that was really interesting is that you're the expert in power consumption, and you're experiencing that now in a town in France someplace. And so if you could explain to us all what makes AI technology particularly power intensive that would create some of these issues that you're having right now.
Yeah, well, there's two elements of the power intensity. One is simply the amount of training that is needed. So, when I talk amongst friends and colleagues, and we talk about new models being trained, training a model requires billions upon billions of iterations of data, and every time you run an iteration, you're running all of those data points again. And so that naturally is incredibly power intensive. The second element is that, unlike a Google search where we're looking for static responses, this isn't a search and respond type technology. Generative AI is creating original content, and that process of generating the original content is incredibly power consuming because of the amounts of data processing that has to happen to give you that next word, that next sentence, in a response. So, while we're all loving AI and where it's going and the potential that it represents, we do certainly have to be mindful of the fact that it is very power intensive. And right now, AI and the demands of AI make it the fastest growing energy consuming process in our economy.
Can I do just a quick follow-up clarification? So you've made a really important distinction that I don't really hear too many people talking about. With a Google search, you're searching for data that's static in a database that exists someplace, right? And they're just getting the data and displaying it, and that consumes a certain amount of power. But with generative AI, and this is really where I want to be clear with for people that's listening, with generative AI, this is not static data. It is actually generating the data in real time based on what it is that you're asking. And it's actually need to run through millions of computations. And that's what's sucking the power. Is that correct? Can you explain it just a little bit more?
Yeah, that's 100% what it is. And so, unlike a traditional, and we'll pick on Google, unlike a traditional Google search, if you were to, ask a similar question to ChatGPT, because ChatGPT isn't just giving you, information that already exists in a database, it's creating that information. The agreed upon increase in power consumption is 10 times. So you're using 10x the amount of power to do a ChatGPT search versus a Google search. But there's sort of another layer on that, if you will, Rohan, and it's that we're not very good at creating prompts, right? I know for myself, I use prompts often, and we have a small independent lab where we test a lot of these products to see, what's showing the most promise and what are the workflows that are going to be most effective. And I can tell you that, I see the numbers 2.7 and 3.8. Those are 2.7 times is the average number of prompts that people have to enter to get the same information that they were looking for, because they're actually, as consumers, as users, we're not very good at writing our prompts yet. And so we're not actually using 10 times the amount of data than a Google search, we're using 27 or 38, depending on whose numbers you listen to.
Interesting. Paul?
Yeah, the conversation between you two and then the transition to me kind of sparked some questions in my mind. And one of the first questions that I want to lead into is the scalability and how power consumption affects that, James. So in your mind, from your perspective, with the things that you're doing at your company at Novo Power, other ventures that you're taking on, how does the ultimate power demand that we're placing on AI, how does that inherently affect the scalability of it?
Well, I mean, I think it's something that we need to be incredibly mindful of. I by nature, I'm an optimist. The glass is always half full for me, but I am a little concerned that right now we're still at the nascent stage of AI. And so certainly at this point, we're playing with a lot of tools as consumers, as professional users. You are both building companies and investing in companies in the space. I would say that even experts like us don't 100% know where this is going. We know it's going to be big. We know that we're finding great value early stage, but just how impactful it's going to be isn't something that's quite defined yet. And today I found myself listening into some CNBC and I can't remember who it was, but someone from Google came on and they were being asked with regards to are we overspending in AI? And their response was simply that, if AI gives us 10% of the value that we think it would give us, we're not overspending. So the tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars are being well invested. I am cautiously concerned that if we were to, for instance, just take all of our Google search and move that into AI searches, we start to have some significant issues with our power grid. To the point that even companies like AWS and Google and Meta have said, because of AI, they cannot meet their 2030 carbon initiatives. Right? So we're talking just about incredible amounts of power demand. And they are on orders of magnitude that are similar to those of electrification of our transportation systems.
So sorry, go ahead, Rohan.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you've mentioned your concern, and I'm pretty optimistic guy myself, and I've been accused of rose-colored glasses more than once. But in this case, one of the common things that people bring forward, which I have to actually that question now, given what you've said. Again, I've been building tech for many years, decades even, and the consumption that you're speaking about and the concerns I think a lot of people have with environmental impact, doesn't that, I mean, you just basically validated that from the numbers that you've given, that we should be really concerned about the impact on the environment with this high power consumption by AI. I mean, is that not true? Is that something that we should really, I mean, we kind of like speak about it, but I don't know if too many of us really take it that serious. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Rohan, you like myself you've been in industry for quite a long time. You probably remember 10 years ago, 15 years ago, everything was IoT. And when we were talking about IoT and connected devices, everyone was talking about, power consumption and how IoT was going to change the world. I was with a friend of mine earlier today, and and he's not very adept at using any of the current AI tools. And and he asked me the question about like AI for image production. We talked about comparing a Google search to a ChatGPT search. But if you were to go into image generation as an example, image generation, is 100 times more of a power requirement than the average task that we ask from an IoT device.
Wow, that's
So,
incredible.
so it is incredible, and I do think that there comes a time where, as operators, we have to then take a look at the economics of it, and what are the benefits versus what are the actual costs to our businesses of doing this, both the economic costs as well as the sustainability costs, the environmental and social impacts of it. And so, I am an optimist. I do think that there's a lot of things that we can do to minimize the environmental and social impact of AI. And I certainly think that AI has the potential to become a leveling of the playing field, for those who understand and understand how it works and know how to leverage it. However, we really do need to be mindful of the impacts.
So, James, that brings to mind just a couple of questions that I have for you. What do you when it comes to the power consumption the AI is exerting into the environment, and what do you think has to do more with it? The data, the need for data, or how much we're actually using AI? Because it's like a vehicle, right? So, you create a car, but it doesn't actually really pollute until you're actually driving it on the road. Yes, there's some pollution that takes place in the production of cars, but the majority of the pollution that cars produce are because we operate them constantly.
Yeah, so I'm a technologist first and foremost. I've been playing around with AI since as early as 2012, when there was really no consumer products that existed in the space. So I firmly believe that we should all be playing with and testing and getting to understand how AI works, how it's built, how we can leverage it. I think there's an incredible environmental cost right now to it, but I do think that as individuals and as professional users, we should be playing with it. We should be exploring it, and we should be looking for ways that AI can address some of the biggest risks and concerns and inefficiencies in our businesses. At the same time, I do think that it's really important that we're really aware of those impacts. In terms of some of those impacts, I think we need to place a really big focus right now at these early stages of being aware of the costs, and then looking for ways to minimize those impacts. And when we talk about minimizing the impacts, I kind of break it into three sections, if you will. And one is responsible use. I think there's a lot of tools that are developed that rely on leveraging AI in the cloud as opposed to on device. And a lot of what folks are leveraging AI to do could be done on device, which would certainly create a lot of efficiency. And then I look at the input and the output. The input is, there's a lot of power required. And, it's not always a popular opinion, but I think that we need to continue looking at things like green hydrogen, like nuclear, so that we have lower carbon inputs in terms of the energy requirements to power our hunger for this technology. I often refer to it as a new technology, but it's not a fad. It's at first, many people talked about IoT as being a fad. IoT is not a fad. It's now a part of our healthcare systems. It's a part of our daily life as consumers and as business professionals. AI is no different. AI is not a fad. And in fact, our usage of it's going to continue to grow exponentially beyond what I think most folks agree that growth rate is going to look like. The second piece is, we really need to look at ways to, once we've put that power into the system and we've done the processing, we need to look for ways to harness some of that waste power. Paul, I remember one of our first conversations ever, I told you that almost 100% of the power that goes into a data center is lost to waste heat. That's incredible to think of. In industry as a whole, it's agreed upon that 60% of primary power that goes into industry and into the consumer world is lost to waste heat. Think of, your phone charging, beside your computer right now. If you feel it, it's warm, right? So the process of charging your phone is inefficient, and naturally that inefficiency is lost as waste heat. In a data center, other than the lights and the sort of the elements of operating, 100% of the power that goes into the processing requirement in a data center to feed our AI demands is lost to waste heat. And so, we need to find ways to recoup that waste heat and recycle or upcycle it into a viable asset.
Yes, I agree. And that was a nice, solid answer to my question, is to, where the dilemma, where the threat with power consumption lies, data or usage. And I do think, there's a data shortage. It's like the water shortage. There's no real shortage of water in the world. What there is there's a lack of accessibility to quality water. And it's the same thing with, data and AI. There's a lack of accessibility to quality data. And so we have, organizations creating synthetic data, which is not always quality data. And I think that there's a lot of, waste that causes, right? There's a lot of waste that causes to produce all this data, and there's not enough of it. There's been stories from people, news articles that have been written that explain the issues. One of the major issues that we have with LLMs is that it's largely reliant on the internet, and the internet just simply, does not have enough data. I mean, it's only been around 35 years, right? And so AI is quickly exhausting that. And I think we can get to a point of sustainability and increased usage, which means increased data through like edge technologies, localization on device, et cetera, et cetera. So I think I agree with, everything you said there. And I think that's where things are definitely going to trend to. And I agree with you that AI is definitely not a fad. It's here to stay. The revolutions, the evolutions that take place in the development of AI may be fads here and there. But overall, AI as a whole is definitely a trend. It's an era that's going to last a long time. So those are my thoughts in response. If you have anything to add there, otherwise I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah. Paul, I think I have two things to add. One is, synthetic data is a huge concern. I've taken a look at some startups and the products that they've built, and the quality of what they can do, is directly affected by the quality of the data that they're using to train models. And I will say that specifically in North America, we were sort of the first to really start looking at synthetic data and leveraging it. And in many ways, we probably wasted 25-30% of our training time and training resources of these large models, because the synthetic data is just not at the same quality. The second piece is you acknowledge that there are going to be elements, evolutions of AI that are in fact trends. I think the trend right now is twofold. One is people are looking at and playing with AI tools. They're finding them really useful, and then they're looking for ways to incorporate those tools into their businesses. I think that's going to be a fad. What's going to happen? What's going to replace that? To use your words, and I like them, the revolution. The revolution is going to be that's going to turn around, and folks are going to go back to the fundamentals of their business, and they're going to say, "I have an inefficiency here. What is the tool that exists that can help me with that inefficiency?" Rather than saying, I found this tool. How can I plug this tool into my business? Right? There's no industry that starts with a solution and then goes and finds a problem to solve it, right? Or to apply it. And so we're going to see, I think that's right now, that's one of the fads, is that everyone's, looking to put AI into their business in any way, shape, or form. I think we're probably, in Europe, where I am right now, I think they're a little bit more advanced than we are in North America in terms of making that change. I think within the next year, you're going to see a massive change here in Europe, that folks are going to go back to the fundamentals of strong business, and they're going to be looking for tools to solve problems or inefficiencies in the business. Unfortunately, I think in the US, we're probably 2 to 3 years away from that sort of paradigm shift happening.
I'll kind of add to that a little bit. So I totally agree with you regarding where it's going, but it's kind of already here. Like we have clients already. There's a law firm I'm working with. There's a financial services firm. There's actually they do health, and so there are clients that already are looking at their business, and instead of saying, "I want to use this tool," they're wanting to be educated regarding how they can use AI to solve their business. And these are fundamental, basic business problems. So I agree with that. That's really, I think that's starting. We're seeing a little bit more of it going around. I think some months ago it was like, I want to use this tool or build this tool. And I think it's now more, hey, actually, I realized that we need to learn exactly what exactly is prompt engineering and what's the right way to do it versus the wrong way to do it. How do we use AI with our marketing strategy? How do we use AI, with our support? So they're asking, I think, better questions today than there were. But to the question that I wanted to ask you a bit more is, we were speaking as well regarding any energy efficiency, right, with AI. And regarding if AI is a fad or IoT. So, my background is with all the different emerging tech. There's like about a dozen emerging technologies that are emerging. We saw blockchain and what it does. We saw IoT. We're now in the middle of AI and robotics. We know quantum computing is around the corner. But I want to ask you about another emerging technology, neuromorphic computing, and the chips that we're trying to figure out based on the way our brains work. So there are two parts of this. If you could explain to the audience first, what exactly is neuromorphic computing and the difference regarding how we're looking at it versus the normal, silicon chips, and how do you see that could potentially have an impact on power demands with AI?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think usage aside, I think the hardware side of the equation is really interesting to me. So the first part of the question is around neuromorphic chips. What are they and how do they operate? Um, Ultimately, neuromorphic chips are, again, really early stage, but unlike traditional advanced chips, they mimic the neural structures of the human brain. And so they're actually capable of performing AI tasks significantly more efficiently than traditional chips. As a result, they require an incredible amount of less power. And, there's not enough evidence to say whether that is absolutely the sort of the next frontier in chips or not. Um, but I'm actually very positive on what those could do, because ultimately, much like the human mind, neuromorphic chips make have the ability to draw alignment between different points of data in a much more organic manner than traditional chips do, and so they're just they're significantly more efficient. On the other side of things, though, on the software side, I think that we're going to be seeing, we've seen, strong advancements in AI algorithm design. So the development of the algorithms is certainly helping us. Um, I think that's somewhat counterbalanced though by what we're asking and what we're expecting from AI. So we are finding these incredible advancements, but at the same time, we are asking and expecting a lot more from these AI tools. But I do think that from a hardware perspective, we're not there yet. We still have a lot of room to grow. Um, you know, chips and systems like NVIDIA Blackrock, which right now is next generation. I think we still probably have 2 to 3 advancemorphs of that magnitude still to go on the hardware side of things, and neuromorphic would be sort of that last major iteration. But then, Paul, you mentioned it, edge computing, doing more specific tasks on device. I do think just the way as designers and engineers we look at leveraging AI, I think we're going to start to become a lot more practical about it, because we're going to have a necessity, a business necessity, to be more practical about how we leverage it.
Yeah, I think when we talk about leveraging AI and just changing the mentality of decision makers in business is to why we did. So Western culture, I don't know about other cultures, but Western culture has this way of hopping on the bandwagon, so to speak. It's a very kind of group think. Um, it's a very group think type of. Sometimes it does us more harm than good. Sometimes it does us good, but we have a history of really focusing on what's hot off the shelf, and just one person, one powerful person, or one influential person says it's good, and then everyone else just kind of follows suit. It's like the herd mentality, right? And we've seen it happen over and over and over again. And there's just that small pocket of resistance that says, no, this is something that we seriously need to take a look at. Like, this is something where we need to do a drastic paradigm shift. It happened with the internet. It happened when people thought that Jeff Bezos couldn't sell books online, and we're better off for it. I think generally speaking, we would all agree, with every technology, there is some collateral damage, right? Like if you didn't have the plane, you wouldn't have the plane wreck, is an example, right? So with every invention, there is some collateral damage, but it's the way that we adopt these technologies, not emotionally, but logically, in a way that makes good business sense, that has some element of not just capitalism, but philanthropy to it, right? It's the way that we adopt these things that bring them into society in a way that is acceptable, right? And the way that we've been embracing AI, the way that leaders have been embracing AI has been for all the wrong reasons. And I think we're starting to see that. So you have like these AI wrapper companies, and I always say when you buy a product, it comes in a wrapper. What do you do with the wrapper? You throw it away. At the end of the day, it's about the core product, and we're seeing that. And so I think we're finally, like you said, we're finally getting to this point where decision makers have to kind of re-architect their mentality as to what is the business case, what's the justification, why are we going to implement this AI into this into our business, right? Just so we can call ourselves an AI company, or is it actually making us more capable? Is it actually helping us enhance and improve our product and provide a better solution to the market? So, is it minimizing the collateral damage? And so I think, what I would ask you, James, is, in your mind, how are different tech sectors, how are different tech sectors doing this, right? So in other words, sorry, one second. My phone is going off. So we'll have to blurb that out in that part. So how are different tech sectors doing this? How are different tech sectors doing this? Because it's one thing to have like AI in your company, right? But so decision makers having to re-architect their overall mentality, right? And prioritize AI welfare over profitization and capitalism. And in your mind, from your level, like how are organizations doing that? Whether it be tech companies, governments, academia, and so forth, and prioritizing AI welfare over corporate profits.
Yeah, well, so a couple of things. One, you talk about the herd mentality. I think the herd mentality is what gets us to where we are today in AI. Everybody's on the bandwagon, so to speak. But Rohan mentioned a little earlier that he's got clients that are coming to him saying, okay, well, we have this business problem. How can AI help us address this problem? Right? Or we have this opportunity. How can we leverage AI to help us capture that opportunity? So the nice thing about the herd mentality is for all those people who sort of just blindly followed into the AI, wilderness, they're going to start following those same folks who are now coming to folks like Rohan saying, okay, we've got a decent understanding of what exists, but let's get really practical. How does this affect my day-to-day business? So the herd mentality for me is interesting because I think naturally the herd is going to start chasing those folks and saying, okay, well, what workflows in my business today can AI actually support? So I think that's, in many ways, if we're in the soft second generation of AI right now, which is AI for consumer use and for mass market use, I think the third sort of generation of AI is really about how can artificial intelligence solve for real world problems in my business or in my personal life today. you talked about sort of different groups, academia, technology companies. I will say that, with every deep tech, emerging opportunity that's come to play, I think that we do pretty good. The majority of my experience is Europe and North America. Certainly in North America, I can say that academia, industry, government all tend to play really well in the sandbox together. As regulators, I think regulators give us a little bit of extra space at the early stages of a new tech to allow us to explore some boundaries. It's only by exploring those boundaries do we know where we might want to set some limits. And we're seeing those in multiple states across the U.S. right now, where regulations being put in place with regards to how AI can be leveraged and how that data is used and manipulated. I think that companies, even some of the largest companies in the world, want responsible use. They want to see this technology be adopted. And if it's going to be adopted and there's going to be a long-term sustainable business model to it, it's going to come down to responsible use and ensuring that all stakeholders have their priorities protected.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that concerns me when we talk about things like this is, particularly with public companies, you have to maximize shareholder interests. So philanthropy has less of a place. So take, for example, the eBay Craigslist court ruling, where the court ruled that you have to prioritize profitization over philanthropy. Craigslist was more of a philanthropic, frugal, community-driven company, whereas eBay had acquired a stake. And so they side it with the shareholders. And I think at the end of the day, we have to create regulations that will incentivize companies to essentially incentivize companies to be AI conscious, to be AI for good. Because if they don't, they would essentially get, let's just say, penalized for not being AI for good, right? And that is influencing shareholder interests positively, right? And so I think there's ways to get around that. And I think if we don't implement things like that, we're going to continue to have this, Jekyll Hyde kind of battle between, AI for good and AI for profit. So, but yeah, definitely great points. I'll pass it back to you both.
Yeah, as we go through this, I mean, there's a really new on Netflix I was watching for. I didn't get to finish watching it. Bill Gates now. There's a Netflix series of Bill Gates, and the first of the series is about AI, and I think it's not going to be all AI. I think it's going to be interviewing other people, and definitely recommend watching it because it was really an eye opener. It's really, really cool. But I think the main thing is that, especially since GPT-4, I think we can, for all of us who really pay attention to this, we'll probably agree that it's much smarter than we are, starting at GPT-4. Like, I think if you don't think so, you're probably missing out on something, right? If it's so smart, which I believe it is, and creative, which I believe it is. Whenever someone says AI is not creative, I'm like, you really need to pay attention. If it's so smart and so creative, can AI not itself be a part of this power demand solution? Can't you say, hey, AI, help us solve this problem? Are we looking at that right now? What are your thoughts?
I think 100% AI can be a part of the solution, not just in terms of the power consumption, but in terms of responsible use. I without sharing anything confidential, I can say that in the past couple of weeks, I've been talking to some folks who have actually been leveraging AI to work on coding structures, to have coding structures that lead to sort of lower demand asks, and ultimately the AI is generating that really efficient code. I do think that AI can do a lot to help us within our energy management, just predicting peaks and valleys, and having us be more efficient in terms of our energy distribution and usage. So I do think that AI can absolutely be a part of the solution on both fronts there.
Cool. All right, that sounds awesome. I mean, that's all I have for now, Paul.
Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed the conversation, thought-provoking, topics and points that we hit on. I certainly hope, and I would conclude that our users probably get a lot of value out of this, and just some of the things that we've covered, from the power consumption of AI and other tech industries, different strategies on how we can maybe reduce some of that power consumption and that waste that we're coming up with in the production of AI, and just ultimately what the future holds, for this industry. It's definitely not a fad; it's here to stay. So, we all need to take part in the collective effort and dig in and try to make this a part of our lives in a way that advances us forward, takes us to new dimensions, places we haven't gone before, and ultimately makes humans just a better species. So anyways, with that being said, James, do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up on your end? How can users get a hold of you?
Yeah. So closing thoughts, I think, as business leaders, we should all be looking at the fundamental challenges we have, and then asking ourselves, are there possibilities and areas that AI can actually address those challenges or inefficiencies in our business? I think as users, as the general audience, I think it's really important that folks are informed. Education is power. Education is empowerment. So if folks understand the basics of how AI works, take the time to play with and explore some of the tools that exist, I think that's extremely beneficial and will help them. I remember it might have been about 18 months, 24 months ago. There was a lot of talk around, how AI was going to, make so many jobs obsolete, and so many people's, careers would be impacted by that. I don't think AI makes jobs inherently obsolete. I think AI makes, should be something that folks are considered or are concerned with, if they don't understand how it works and don't understand how they can leverage it in their roles. That's where the risk is as an individual contributor. But I think, AI has the ability, for those who understand it and know how it works, to really help us, level the playing field. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what this next chapter of AI looks like. In terms of reaching out to me, LinkedIn is always my place. So you can reach out to me at James Chalmers on LinkedIn, or through Basecamp Capital online.
Appreciate that, James.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure to have you.
I'd like to add one more thing as well. Yeah. Paul? Yeah, so are we still connected? Yeah. So I'd like to add as well, thanks as well, Paul, sorry, I was going to start. Yeah, so what I'd like to add as well is that I think it's been a really great conversation, James. I think it's been fantastic. I agree with you that education is really the path. I think like this podcast, we're focused on educating and breaking down and even simplifying some of these really complex topics. I think it's fantastic. As I stated as well, we're seeing more and more businesses that are really interested in learning. There's a law firm that wants to know how to use AI to, do things better with contracts. There are different corporate clients that want to understand how to use AI better with their financial services. There are different industries that are really looking at it now from a purely business point of view. How can I help AI with these business processes versus how can I use this tool or that tool? So we're seeing that as a change this year. And we certainly do a lot of that education ourselves with our business. And further for education, we'll be starting tomorrow releasing a newsletter to kind of like simplify a lot of this stuff as well. So if you'd like to get some more information about this, again, just go to rohanhall.com and you can see some of this stuff that we're working on getting people educated, or you can just connect with me on LinkedIn as well for Rohan Hall. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And certainly people can also listen to and follow Explainable AI because I'd say this podcast is a great opportunity for people to understand, the many facets of AI and the implications in our lives.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, and we can actually keep this in here, is that I think this is such a great opportunity, Explainable AI, because it is going so fast for so many people that their heads are spinning, and some of the phrases and the terms that are being thrown out there, people are like, "What are you talking about?" Like, a year ago we never heard of this thing, and now what is this neomorphic thing, or what of this, So what I really, I really think we can achieve with Explainable AI is to just really break this down into everyday language, right? And bring in people like you that are experts in your area to help to really, I think, do a service by just really educating people. So I really appreciate the conversation and to have you as a part of this program as well.
No, it's been great, and thank you both for having me.
Cool.
Likewise. Thank you to all our listeners, and stay tuned for the next Explainable AI podcast.
All right. Cheers.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, everyone. Okay, Paul.